Hey, Russell Hotel's going live just for a couple minutes. You guys know how I do it. Hey, I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Victor Simmons. We're live at the PGA National Resort in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. So, yeah, it was a long trip for me. I did this whole red eye thing last night, but I got here, didn't get any sleep, but it's okay because I got a chance to talk to my friend, Victor Simmons. So, hey, Vic, how you been?
Russ, I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you, man.
It's good seeing you as well. I'm glad you took that 3.5 hour drive over from Orlando to just to say hey and break bread with us. We had breakfast this morning, or it's going to be a late breakfast today. So, but it's always good seeing you, man.
Great seeing you.
So, what,
Yeah, I knew you were coming out. I had to make my way over here.
you know, what, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, what you been doing? I know we talk on the phone every now and then, but what's been going on? What you been working on?
There's been a lot going on. Now you might have to, I don't know, with all these cameras there, maybe you might want to edit this part out because my wife hates for me to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Even though I haven't had a damn job, I have been very, very busy.
Okay.
First of all, I've been traveling quite a bit. We did have the Simmons family reunion, which was here in Florida and Orlando, my hometown, that I hosted. That was a big, big deal. Great weekend. Prior to that, my wife and I did a cruise, the Caribbean. And then prior to that, I was in California. So I've been doing a lot of personal travel, almost as much as when I was, when I didn't have a damn job. And I launched my business, Victorious Endeavors. I had opened that up a number of years ago, but I relaunched it. And so I've been doing some coaching. I got a couple of folks that I've been coaching in leadership development.
Okay.
I've been doing some training. I do some online webinars and some in-person facilitation. In fact, I'm heading to New Orleans for a hospitality event, Hospitality Hued,
Okay.
which happens in New Orleans next week. So I fly out to New Orleans on Tuesday to lead a facilitation for GMs.
Wow.
I'm very excited about.
Okay, so very good, very good. Well, can you take us a little bit? Can you talk about what your last position was and kind of what you're looking for now?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Previously, I was the VP of HR and the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know those are scary letters, DEI. So let's spell it out as diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was running that for about 4 years. We had a dozen hotels throughout the country and abroad. So okay, had a great opportunity to open hotels in Australia, Japan, Toronto, Canada, and most recently, October of last year, we opened in Athens, Greece.
Okay.
So great, great experience.
Wow, wow. So, are you looking to transition that experience to something new, maybe a different hotel company, or are you looking to do things on your own at this time? Wow.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle. I like doing both. I like being my own boss. I like the flexibility of doing that, but I miss having a team. I like to have, meetings where I have people come into the office and we talk about whatever the problem is and come up with a solution and have people in for lunch and figure those things out. I like, having wins and celebrating those wins. I like doing that with a team as opposed to just myself. So if I land a big piece of business where I can hire more folks, and maybe I would do that. But for the moment, I'm looking to get back into a corporate role.
Okay. Okay. What do you feel about visibility? And this is a good thing, a good segue because I'm always talking about, we need to be more visible when even if we're working in a job at a hotel, and we're going to use hotel because that's our background, right? That's our common background. But what do you think about the visibility factor of trying to maybe find a new job or a new career or anything like that? Do you use that, or is it something that I think it's benefited you?
Absolutely. I think it's paramount. People are always commenting. You comment, and a number of others talk about how I network. And I'm a big believer in networking. In fact, my saying is network, network, network. And when you've networked, you think you've done enough networking, network some more. And I think being out there for a leader, when I started out in operations, as you know, in convention services, I wanted to know who the other convention service managers were in my market and what they were doing. What was the best theme party? What were the best food and food and wine pairings, those type of things. When I was in front office, the same thing. I wanted to know what was happening to guest services. And then in HR, same thing. Who's dealing with, in California, meal break penalties everybody was just pulling their hair out. I wanted to know how other hotels were handling it, how other HR directors were handling those things. So I think it's important to know your market, know who's in your market and what they're doing. And then from a job hunting standpoint, if you are going to land the next job, you got to be seen as the expert in your field. So I think it's important to be talking about those things that are important to you, things that are important to the work from an HR standpoint, a DEI standpoint. What are those things that are important to your workforce? And you should be out there talking about those things with authority. And if you do that, I think the role that I got with Atelier Ace was because at that time was the pandemic.
Right.
And I was out there on LinkedIn. I was doing some things. I did a podcast with JT O'Donnell.
Okay.
And right after that podcast, I ended up getting a call. And I think it's because that came back up in the algorithm. They saw that and they remembered a conversation I had had with them a year prior.
Mm.
And then one thing led to another from that interview. So yeah, I think you gotta be out there if you want to be seen. Because nowadays, when you apply online, if you think you could just apply and then hope that they're going to see your application,
Mm.
yeah, your odds are very, very low. You got to be recognizable and noticed.
Okay. All right. I like that. I like that. Another thing we talked about over breakfast, and it kind of perked me up a little bit. AI and HR. What's the thing with that? And is that, I don't know if that's a good thing. Is it a bad thing? Is it? I mean, it's something that's coming, or it's already.
Is here, absolutely here. And I think from an HR for an HR professional,
Uh-huh.
because what's the first thing everybody thinks of when you hear AI? They go, "Oh, it's Terminator. Oh, well, they're going to take away my job." Yeah, exactly. And for an HR person, if you're going to be advocating for your workforce and you're also a business person and you're a consultant to your leaders, you got to understand what AI is doing and what it's doing for the workforce, how it can help you. And you need to understand the issues that are happening, which is ethics. There are issues, there are biases in there. We need to understand those and see how we can guide AI in the direction that makes sense for us. And it's been a very powerful tool with my previous company. I made sure my team understood it and that they were actually using, because there's a lot of time savers in there as long as we're using it correctly and the right way.
Okay. Okay. What are some issues that you see with AI as a an HR professional? Other things that we can do to attack that?
Yeah, I think the biggest one right now is in the talent acquisition space. Right now, what's happening, in fact, there's a big suit, there's a class action right now with Workday, because what happens is when you apply, oftentimes it's AI that's doing the sifting and determining who is a viable candidate or not without anybody actually looking at that. So if you are an HR practitioner, a talent acquisition practitioner, and you have your system designed for that to do the selection and you're not involved at all, then you're likely to have some problems. So you should be auditing your work that's coming through. You should be looking to see if there's any biases there, because that's the biggest problem at the moment, is whether the selections are bias free.
But you think AI is a good tool for HR?
Oh, absolutely. I think in that particular process, if it's done properly, that does alleviate some of the time involved in there. You could be that much more strategic than actually sifting through a bunch of resumes. But you need to make sure that the system is working properly first before you just sort of set it and let it do its thing.
Okay. Okay. Now, before I kind of give you the last question that I'm going to ask you, how do we know each other, Victor?
We were adversaries in football back in the day. I was at the champion high school team, and it was what was your team? It was, I think you were in our league, right? I think you were.
Yeah, we were in your league.
But we met in junior college. We didn't know each other when you were playing against each other and we were whooping your tails. But when we got to junior college is when Russell and I met at the local JC in my town, and the rest is history. I remember going over your house and making these huge breakfasts, and then going up when we later went on to Cal Poly. Well, you were at Fullerton, right? And I was at San Diego State initially, and then you were going to transfer from Fullerton to Cal Poly in the hospitality program. And at the time, I thought that it was either UNLV or Cornell were the only options for me. And I didn't think I could make make the trip there, afford those. And then Cal Poly had a hospitality program. Then I was busy having a kid too.
That's just right. Victor was a grown man. We were all still being kids, but Victor was married with a kid. Okay.
So, yes, yes, yes. And so I ended up coming back to the desert to COD one more semester, and then I ended up going to Cal Poly the following semester after that. Best
And we were friends ever since. And yeah, so it's been a good ride, man. It's right. So what would you, in closing, what would be the perfect job for you right now?
would be doing what I was doing before. I like to have my hands both in HR and diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's like, I have been a DEI practitioner since 2015. I've always been a champion since I've been in this industry. And it's a lot of black and brown folks that are at entry level position, but as you rise up, there's fewer and fewer. So I've always been an advocate for that. But I became an actual practitioner in the DEI space since 2015. And in 2020, when we had the pandemic, you may recall in the summer of 2020 is when everybody was out in the street because of the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others. And at that time, I was looking for work and I was like, well, I can do HR, I could do DEI. But then when all of this started happening, I was like, man, I need to be on the front lines. I need to be in DEI for sure. And so I was very fortunate to get on with Atelier to be able to do both practices. And now we're at another precipice with what's going on in our society around these three scary letters. And the thing I will leave you with is it's not just these three words. It's not one thing. It's a entire body of work. I wanted to get my certification, which is just like any other certification you would do. There's weeks and weeks of study. There's volumes of books that you go through to study to be able to become certified in that. So it's a lot of different levers and pulleys that you do in order to make sure that everyone feels like they belong at the workplace. And what I will end in this is that everybody, again, right now, despite of what you might hear on whatever station you listen to, whatever channel you're watching, in any corporate workplace right now, people want to feel like they belong. And if we do that, there's a series of things that you have to do. It's not just one thing you do for people to feel that way. And so I think that that's very important work that needs to be done and needs to be understood now more than ever. And so I'm looking to be able to do something in the HR space with a corporate team, and where we're doing all of those things, where you're an advocate for your people, and you also are a strategic business leader to drive your in the for profit. We're there to make money, so let's do all of those things. Let's make money, have a lot of fun at the same time, and be able to make this a great place to work for everybody.
What would be the big difference in, I guess, the DEI practices in 2015 to DEI practices now?
That's a great question, because actually, if you go to 2015, when I first became the practitioner for Winter Worldwide, so global. In that space, at that time, we were talking about inclusion. People were starting to put inclusion in front of diversity. So it was DEI, but then they started saying IND. So people, because there was backlash, there has always been backlash to talking about making things equitable, not equal, equitable for everybody. There's been pushback. So let's go back to the 60s, right? When everybody was in the streets then for the civil rights movement. There was people on all sides that were pushing for and against that. So to 2015, there was pushback to talking about diversity, and was diversity different people? And there were people pushing back against that. So practitioners started saying, well, let's do IND. And that's actually what my problem is with folks that think that way, because again, you could call it whatever you want to call it. People are still going to have issue with that work. What's important is that you do the actual work. And so there were a lot of people if you go to 2020, what was different there were a lot of people, or a lot of things happened. Was one thing in particular that happened was, oh, you're black or you're brown. Okay, you're in charge of diversity now. but they weren't a practitioner. So there are, again, a number of things that need to happen to make everyone feel. But if you are, it's, we all have, that's the other thing you need to understand is we all have biases. So if you put whomever in charge, they are going to have some biases, particularly someone that is not a trained practitioner, and those things are going to show, which is going to cause problems. And I think that that has what happened with where we are. Not all, but for the most part, a lot of what happened is because there were a lot of importance put on certain things that were leaving other people out. What happened to those people that were left out back in the 60s? They were out in the streets. Well, what's happening right now for those people that felt like they're left out? And guess who's in control right now? A lot of that particular group. So nothing, quite frankly, has really changed other than who is most upset at the moment or who feels like they're left out. And again, if you want to have a business that is profitable, you need to have everybody going in the right direction. And if you're just going to willy-nilly leave certain people out, you're not going to be as productive. So you have to figure out a way to be able to do that. Is it changing the names of programs? Sure, you could do that. But what is the work that's actually being done? Are you looking at the data? And that has been part of the problem, was that they started doing, oh, well, let's do this. But you didn't look at the data first to see what is the right thing to drive you in a particular direction. So you need to look at the data. Absolutely. And I think those are just a few of the things. It is awful. There's a lot of different levers and pullers that need to be pulled in order to get us back on track. I will say, wrapping this part up is that what happened in 2020 was there were so many people that were out there saying, hey, this is wrong and we need to do it. We need to get back to that saying, wait, we're going the other direction. And we need to find what that balance is in the work that we're doing. And I think we can get things back on track.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for your conversation, Mr. Victor Simmons. Man, for just such a beer. Thank you so much. You're more than welcome. Once again, I'm Russell of Hotels. This is kind of like a daily check-in, if you will, but with a good friend. So we just wanted to, have a quick conversation. So until later, have a great day. And we're live from the PGA National Resort in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida.